Let's talk about what happens when you truly see someone. Not the quick glance we give while scrolling through our phones or the half-hearted nods during rushed conversations. I mean, the kind of seeing that makes your chest tighten, where you notice the way someone's voice shakes when they're trying to hide excitement or how their eyes flicker sideways just before they lie. Most of us walk through life missing these moments, drowning in our own thoughts, chasing productivity hacks, or numbing out with endless streams of content. But there's a quiet revolution happening in how we connect, not through another self-help book or meditation app, but through an old acting exercise designed to strip away everything fake and leave only what's human. I'm Mark Roach. Welcome to Transcendent, my platform formed from a journey around the world through life, crossing a wide spectrum of human experience from high to low as most people in American society define them. This channel is all about inspiring common people to find their power, their place in the world, how to put their uniqueness in their life. But much of the research and understandings that come upon in my life involve biblical scripture, as well as that of scientists, mystics, philosophers, and exceptional spiritual leaders, pioneers in psychology, neuroscience. And much of their work is complicated and technical. I'm an engineer with a deep connection to my emotions and inner life, so I've conducted research in my life, and I'm sharing it here, hoping to ease the way for others who deal with complex PTSD or have a calling to pursue their uniqueness or have a friend or loved one in such a place. Some of my work feels original here, but those who I've studied, like Jung, Gurdjieff, Nicole, the Apostle Paul, Steiner, deserve much of the credit. Now let's get to the heart of something transformative. The Meisner Repetition Exercise. It wasn't meant for boardrooms or first dates. Sanford Meisner created it in the 1930s to solve two core problems that actors faced: self-consciousness and having terrible listening skills. But here's the twist. What if this exercise isn't really about acting at all? What if it's about rewiring how we show up in every conversation, every conflict, every moment where we wish we could be more present? Imagine sitting across from someone, repeating back phrases like, "You're tapping your foot," or "Your voice just got quieter." It sounds absurd, like a bad improv game. But stick with me. This simple back and forth does something radical. It forces you out of your head. No time to plan witty comebacks or rehearse your life story. Just you, another person, and the raw data of the moment, their tone, their posture, the micro shifts in energy most of us ignore. Corporate trainers are now using this with sales teams. Therapists borrow it to help couples break communication deadlocks. Why? Because it cuts through the noise of overthinking and lands you squarely in the messiness of real connection. Let's break this down. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about navigating them without drowning. The repetition exercise acts like an anchor. When you're focused on mirroring someone else's behavior, literally repeating their words while noticing how their hands clench or their breath hitches, your brain doesn't have bandwidth to spiral into anxiety. One study found that mirroring activates the same reward centers as eating chocolate. That's why babies calm down when parents mimic their coos. We're wired to find safety in synchronization. A market executive told me that she uses this during high-stake pitches. Instead of rehearsing my sides, I watch the client's reaction and just adjust in real time. It's like dancing rather than delivering a monologue. Vulnerability gets talked to death about these days, but how to do it, how to actually practice it without feeling exposed? Well, the Meisner exercise creates a paradox. By restricting what you say, by just repeating phrases, it frees up how you feel. There's no script to hide behind. If anger bubbles up, you can't deflect it with a joke. If you're hurt, you can't paper it over with small talk. A man in a men's group shared, the first time I shouted, you're mocking me during an exercise, I realized I'd been swallowing that feeling for years in my marriage. This isn't about drama, it's about spotting the emotional debts we carry and finally paying them. Now, communication. We've all been in conversations where words say one thing, but faces say another. The repetition exercise trains you to catch these disconnects. A nurse said that it transformed her patient interactions. Before, she would just ask, how's your pain? And take their answer at face value. And then she said, if I notice their jaw tightens when they say I'm fine, that's where the real conversation starts. This hyper attunement to nonverbal cues isn't mystical, it's a skill. It's like learning to spot counterfeit bills by handling real ones daily. Confidence gets framed as this unshakable self-belief, but what if it's simpler? One woman described the exercise as emotional weightlifting. Each repetition is like a rep, practicing the muscle of trusting your gut. At first, stating obvious truths, you're avoiding eye contact. That feels terrifying. But over time, you learn observations don't have to be profound, just true. That's how self-trust builds. A teacher in Chicago uses modified versions with shy teens. They start with safe observations like your shoelace is untied, then gradually name harder truths like you seem sad today. It's like giving them permission to occupy space without apology. Here's where it gets practical. You don't need a partner or class to start. Try this tonight. Replay a tense conversation in your head. Maybe a fight with your partner or a weird exchange with your boss. Write down what was said, then what you wish you'd have noticed in the moment. Their pacing, gestures, what your body felt like. This isn't about regret, it's about pattern recognition. Most conflicts aren't about surface topics, but the unmet needs leaking through our posture and tone. Corporations are catching up on this. Like beyond Gucci's workshops, tech companies use Meisner-inspired exercises to combat Zoom fatigue. One remote team does virtual repetition where they mirror each other, their phrases during meetings. The CEO told me it sounds kooky, but it cut down our misunderstandings by half. When you're really listening, you catch the hesitation before someone says, I'll try versus I will. Therapy parallels are striking. Trauma often disconnects us from the present. Flashbacks trap people in the past. Anxiety yanks them into the future. The repetition exercise's insistence on now mirrors grounding techniques used in PTSD treatment. A therapist in Colorado blends both. Clients practice noticing their partner's current behavior instead of catastrophizing. It's exposure therapy for presence. But let's be clear, this isn't a cure-all. Some find the exercise uncomfortable and confrontational. A shy college student said, at first I hated it, focusing on someone that intensely felt invasive. Yet she stuck with it and now credits the practice for helping her navigate dorm conflicts without freezing up. The key is consent. This isn't about ambushing people with observations, but creating mutual spaces for raw dialogue. What's the end game? Beyond better conversations or workplace harmony, this is about reclaiming agency over how we experience life. Every moment when we're bombarded with inputs, email, ads, notifications, the repetition exercise is a counterweight, training us to filter out the noise and latch onto what matters. The human across from us. In all their messy, unpredictable glory, a filmmaker described it as using it during family visits. My dad always monologues about politics instead of tuning out. I started noticing his body language. When I said, your face lights up when you talk about the 60s, he paused and shared stories about protesting the Vietnam War. We'd never gotten there in 30 years of surface fights. So this isn't about becoming perfect listeners or emotionless observers. It's the opposite. Embracing the stumbles, the awkward pauses, the moments where we blurt out the wrong thing. because it's where the real connection lives. The Meisner exercise at its core is a rebellion against the curated selves we present to the world. It says, here's what I see, take it or leave it. And in that boldness, we find not just better acting, but better living. I'm Mark Roach, wishing you all the best.